Welcome to the Success in Africa podcast with Dr. Modupe, your weekly dose of leadership vitamins to make you successful in Africa.
Welcome everyone to the Success in Africa Leadership podcast. I'm Dumisani Magadlela, and today I am honored to be your guest host for this beautiful podcast, Success in Africa Leadership. The purpose of this podcast today is to help Africans to be successful by sharing with them the journeys of other successful Africans. Normally, this podcast is hosted by Dr. Modupe Taylor Pierce. But today, ladies and gentlemen, I will be hosting it because I have the honor of interviewing our very own Dr. Modupe Taylor Pierce himself. His impact and success have recently been recognized by Thinkers 50, the global rankers of gurus of management and leadership and coaching in the world. This year, Dr. Modupe Taylor Pierce has been recognized as one of the coaching legends, an honor given to only 8 people globally annually. Dr. Modupe Taylor Pierce, thank you for joining us today. Now, shifting to the landscape that you're part of, let's call it the geo-leadership. It's not geopolitics, geo-leadership. What has contributed the most to your impact and success in Africa? BCA is known now as one of the leading, if not the leading, leadership outfits on the continent.
I wish I could tell you with all honesty that the origins of BCA came from an altruistic place. But I wouldn't be completely honest if I said that. So let me share a bit as to where it came from, because I think that's useful to see where we are.
Yeah.
I was the beneficiary of a service in the United States where I was living at the time, which provided me with this kind of, as a recipient, peer learning or training, as well as coaching for me and about 14 other CEOs or heads of companies. I was at the time running a small company, about a $20 million logistics company in California. And, I benefited from this service. We were successful at running this company. This company became better. And after doing that for a while, I decided that I wanted to move myself and my family to Sierra Leone in order to utilize my skills for the betterment of Africa. And when my friends asked me, they said, "Oh, so you're going back to Africa? Do you have a job?" Is there something? I said, "No, I'm going there to create jobs." So for the first 2 years in Africa, I started 3 companies. 2 of them were spectacular failures. I mean, one of them even made the front page of a newspaper in terms of its failure. And I lost big money. Somewhere in that, at the end of the second year, as I was licking my wounds and going through the various stages of grief, including blaming everybody else for my misfortunes, I then did some reflection to say, what happened? How could you go from being successful business leader in the United States, having turned around a company, to here in Sierra Leone, you can't seem to get even the smallest enterprise started successfully? And when I analyzed it, I realized that actually what happened was I made poor decisions that led to the demise of these companies because there were things I did not know. at the time I made those decisions. And then I said, okay, well, why didn't you know it? And the only thing I could come up with was that I didn't have an environment like I had in the US, where I was part of a learning group of CEOs and also had a coach. And that's when it hit me. I said, oh my God, that's it. I needed to have a coach. I needed to have a space where I was being fed.
Yeah.
So I started looking for one. I said, well, let me find a group like that. And I looked and looked and looked and couldn't find anything. There was nothing. And that's when I realized that's the problem. How many other smart, well-educated, driven, success-driven people are there making decisions every single day for their organizations, for their companies, and making poor decisions because of things they don't know,
Yeah.
and getting outcomes that they don't want. And so I kept saying, somebody ought to do this. Somebody ought to take care of this. Somebody ought to make this kind of service available. And eventually, when you keep hearing your voice echo back to you, the thought occurs that, well, perhaps that should be you.
Yeah.
So eventually, I summoned up the courage, and the Lord provided me with a co-founder who spurred me to say, let's do this.
Amen.
And so in 2017, BCA was born. After we did a pilot in 2016, and with the recognition that there was a need for leaders to receive the kind of leadership enhancement services that would help them to make better decisions and achieve the very outcomes they wanted, which was basically the executive coaching and peer learning. And by the grace of God, today, we've grown into a Pan-African company, probably one of the largest executive coaching companies, and also leadership enhancement that, is in Africa with over 40 world-class coaches in every region of Africa. So it's been a journey to get there. And absolutely our goal is the transformation of Africa. We just want Africans to be successful. That's what we want.
Yeah.
And again, it started with me having a failure and recognizing what the gap was and saying, I'm going to need some help. And so if I'm going to get myself some help, let's create the organization that can help me. And then eventually it then morphed into something a little bit more altruistic, which was let's help every other African in Africa.
Modupe, that is such a powerful lesson around that. The message you shared there about when you hear your voice echoing back at you around what you keep saying, we should do this, someone should do this, someone should do this, and you start hearing your own voice and then saying, oh, maybe I need to do this myself. That's such a powerful lesson. We have a tendency to always point fingers and always say someone else needs to do it. And your lesson for all of us here is that we need to look into ourselves. We need to look within and see what we can do ourselves to uplift ourselves and those around us. And you mentioned something about the network, tapping into a network that nourishes you as a leader, as a leadership advocate, and building those accountability partners and growing an ecosystem like you've done with BCA. And so there's been the transition into leadership coaching in the scaling up of that with the network, and then the lessons that have been drawn from that you've covered. For me, it's an important one. A question around that, though, maybe coming back to your own resourcing within you, because you rely a lot on that. In terms of your family relationships, your queen, your children, your professional influences around friends and career, people that have been around you that nourish you, because that's where we start. Any reflections that you can share with our listeners on this beautiful podcast around how do you nourish yourself, Mudube, to remain grounded and anchored? What supports you? What's your support system that keeps you going?
I have been very, very blessed with an amazing support system, which includes my family, includes some mentors, includes a coach. And for my family, it certainly starts with my wife. I've been married for 27 years and counting. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. We're blessed with 3 amazing children who are all young adults now. And I believe very sincerely that leadership starts in the home. Your leadership really starts in the home. As I mentioned at the beginning of this interview, talking about my formative years, the place where I got the most education, despite all the schools I went to, was at home.
Yeah.
With my parents, my siblings. Many of the lessons that influence who I am as a leader today, I got from them. And so I'm very intentional about the fact that my children, my wife, require and need me to be a leader in order for them to learn the right lessons. But they also are invited to nourish me as a leader.
Yeah.
As they have grown, I have certainly encouraged them to give me feedback on what I'm doing. I created the space where they can give their opinions, they can ask questions, etc. And I've learned to do that partially due to my coach training by leading with questions. Although I must say, I probably should give more credit to my father because that's exactly how he also led. In fact, it was quite infuriating for us as children sometimes. You would go to him with a problem and say, Dad, I got this problem, etc. And sometimes you're in a hurry and you just wanted to say, okay, do this, do this, do this. And he'd be like, okay, now tell me more about this. Well, what about this? How did you? And you're like,
quintessential coach.
But at the end of the day, he made you think, and he made us come up with solutions that ultimately were better suited for our situation. So I freely confess that I have, continued that legacy and shared that with them. And I've added to it, really creating spaces for them to tell me what they think by being intentionally vulnerable during, different times. So there was a time, for example, when we had, we were going through a bit of a crisis. And, and I brought the kids and said, okay, here's the situation. We have it was an Ebola crisis. We've got this going on. There's only so much money, and we have to make some choices. What do you guys think? And of course, they were like, I don't know, Dad, what are we going to do? It's like, well, that's why we're here. We're talking about it. And of course, yes, we reserve the right to make the final decisions as parents, but really helping them to see and understand what happens behind the scenes has been helpful. And of course, with that, they also then give me feedback on what they're seeing, how they think about it. And I've always told them, you're allowed to ask any question you want, as long as you're willing to accept no for an answer. So, so that's one of the areas where I get nourished. But I also
Yeah.
should mention it's very important to have mentors.
Yes.
You know, I've had, in addition to my parents who've been excellent mentors, God rest their soul, I've also had some other mentors. You know, Steve Bowen was a mentor and still continues to be a mentor who has helped me professionally with
Yeah.
my sales skills, my CEO skills. Victor Rossi comes to mind, an Italian American. Michael McDaniel was my military mentor. Will Ben Short, my co-founder, has been a
Yeah.
mentor for many years. Pat
Yeah.
Lloyd Warite. I have benefited from these people
Right.
whom have either taken me under their wing, and in some cases, I have recruited them to take me under their wing
Yeah.
and said, I want to learn more from you. And I continue to search for appropriate mentors based
Right.
on where I want to go. And I want to make this point clear.
Yes.
The higher you go, the more important it is for you to seek out the mentors, because the mentors you have,
Yeah.
as you go higher in your career,
Yeah.
they are busy people, and they're not waking up in the morning saying, gee, let me find a mentee. It's incumbent on you to find them. So I've sometimes had to be the one to go near people and say, hey, I'd like to learn a bit more from you.
Yeah.
Would it be okay if I call you from time to time and we just have a chat? And that's been very helpful. I also would certainly add to that the coach that I have. And, even though I am a coach, I have a coach
Yes.
because I'm also a leader, and I need those kinds of spaces as well to be helpful. I met my coach actually during coach training, and we agreed to, she agreed to be my coach.
Yes.
After that. So that's been very, very important. And collectively, I call these people, in a sense, my personal board of directors,
Wow.
because they help me. They're the ones who will tell me certain things that maybe I don't want to hear
Yeah.
at certain times.
Yeah.
Not too long ago, one of them actually looked at me and says, "You're looking exceedingly healthy these days, Mutupe."
Mm.
And and I knew exactly what this person meant, which was you gain weight.
Not in so many words, but you got the message.
And you know, but it's important to have those people
Yeah.
who care enough about you to tell you the truth, and also to monitor you and
Yes.
say, you know what, something's not right, or you look
Yeah.
like you need a break. And I've been just really, really blessed. But I also want to make the point that they
Yeah.
did not come by accident.
Yeah.
Okay, they did not all come by accident. I also, by what I was doing, by being clear about where I'm going, and by being intentional, was able to draw them into my circle to be able to be those people who help to nourish me on my journey.
Wonderful. Who help nourish you along your journey, because it is a journey. And as we say in Africa, if you want to go fast, you go alone. You want to go far, you go together. You take others with you, because you carry the load together. And the load of leadership, as you have demonstrated with your life and your work, Dr. Modupe.
Tomorrow belongs to those people who prepare for it today. See you next week.